Welcome to the Mommy Collective. I'm Paulina Rowe, radio host, TV contributor, writer, and mom of one. This is where ambitious moms come to keep their identity intact while navigating motherhood. Here we talk about the real stuff: career, money, relationships, identity, and everything that gets messy in between. You won't find sugarcoating or cliches. What you will find are unfiltered conversations, real resources, and proof that you don't have to lose yourself to be a good mom. The Mommy Collective is here to remind you can be ambitious, you can take up space, and you can thrive in motherhood and in everything else that makes you, you. Before we get into the episode, make sure you're following the Mommy Collective on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and share this podcast with a mommy in your life who needs a little inspiration, or just a reminder that she's killing it. Also, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and leave us a review so we can keep showing up and reach every ambitious mom out there doing big things. Let's get into it. Mommy Collective here, Paulina Rowe. I'm so excited to bring in my guest today. We finally made it happen. I have Aliette Hernandez, Carolan. Did I say it right?
Close enough, yeah.
Oh my God, you're gonna jump through the computer and be like, we talked about this.
No. You can't, with a name like mine, you cannot be sensitive about that. Aliette is not a common name, and Carolan sounds like a first name, but it's a last name, so it's all good.
I love it. Well, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here. We are talking, of course, all things motherhood. I would love to get an insight, kind of a look into, your journey with that, because we all know it's a journey. And it's probably something that, I feel like moms could relate to each other on, no matter what it is. And I also definitely want to talk about, kind of I don't want to say the ugly side of things, but it's the reality of life, right? It's separation, divorce, life after kids. I know obviously people get divorced before kids, but I definitely want to talk about, the ones that do prior to having children and creating a family, because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, that might make things a little different, right, when it comes to divorce court or whatever it might be, separation. So you were kind of my go-to expert for that. I'm so happy I came across your Instagram. I've heard you on other podcasts, so I am super excited to bring you on. So if you don't mind giving us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Sure. And first, thank you for having me, and I'm so glad that we managed to get it going and coordinate our schedules. I'm super happy to be here, so thanks again. All right, so a little bit about me. I am a mom. I have two girls that I live for, and I have been a family law attorney for over 21 years, and I was divorced and separated in 2016, and I am a single mom. My ex-husband doesn't even live in Florida anymore, so it's literally all on me. And that has its pluses and minuses, like everything in life. And I made certain arrangements in my divorce that sometimes I look back at and think, oh, what was I thinking? But, it's like everything. I always keep in mind there's always pluses and there's always minuses, So I carry all of the burden and all of the stress, but I also have all of the freedom and all of the joys, and I have, it's nice to have the freedom, right, that I get to do and say with my kids as I choose. When I wanted to get up and move to Spain, I did, with my girls, of course. So that's definitely a plus to having all the freedom, but I also have all of the responsibility. Every time a tuition bill comes, it's like, oh,
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
So that's my yin and yang, in my situation. I have, like I said, I've been practicing within the area of complex marital and family law since 2004. And I love what I do. I wrote a book, and it was published in 2017, guided mostly to help women. And it's about self-sufficiency and finding your power, and really, I love the beginning and the end of the book, because the beginning of the book, and I guess it's all fresh in my mind because the second edition is going to be coming out now. So I've been rereading it and editing it and all that, so it's very fresh in my mind. But, the beginning of the book is all about, before the relationship, before you get serious, before you get married, things to think about, things to consider, to kind of avoid the mistakes that I made, right? Because I didn't do any of that when I chose and married my ex-husband. So it's all about that. And then on the other side, it's about after, right? And once you decide or realize that the marriage is over, what steps to take to protect yourself, protect your children. And I'm big on divorce is not necessarily a tragedy. Separation is not a tragedy for those people who have children and they're not married. The same applies, right? It's still a massive transition, whether you're legally married or not, right? So a big part of my work and my current work and the projects that I'm so passionate about right now is I've been developing these courses, these online divorce-related courses for before, during, and after, because each phase carries with it its own pain, its own transition, and also its own joy, right? And my mission really is to make the legal system obsolete, because it's not, it cannot carry the weight of a family, right? It's not designed to be helpful. It is not designed to be fair. It's a paradigm that we have to learn how to work within. And so family law is one of those random areas of the law where you don't really need the court if you can come to an agreement with your other parent or your spouse. And so I want to teach people how to do that. I want to take the messiness of it out as much as possible, and I think the best way to do that is through education. And so that's what I've been working on, right? And my favorite part is the after, because I've been through it, right? Like divorce and separation is not academic for me. It's not something that I read about or something that I studied. It's not only those things to me. It's not just my professional practice that I've dedicated over 21 years to. I've lived it. I lived it as a kid. I was a teenager when my parents separated. And then I've lived it as an adult. And I live it every day. I still co-parent. My kids are 13 and 16 now. They were 4 and 7 when we separated. So I've been doing it for a long time. And, I'm proud to say that I've built a life that I really enjoy. I built a relationship with my children that I'm proud of, and almost a friendship with my ex-husband. And I say almost because, it's not like we're hanging out at each other's homes all the time, but he's there for me if I need him, and I'm there for him if he needs me. And when it comes to our kids, they always come first. And so what else do you need beyond that, right? Like,
I get that, yeah.
So maybe I went on and on a little bit too much, but that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. I love that it seems like one of your missions is truly to help people, especially because you've been through it. So helping women kind of navigate this, like you said, it's not always a tragedy, but it's also not really designed in the most easiest way. And I believe that as somebody who comes from a divorced household, meaning not my biological father, but my stepdad and my mom, who's my sister's dad, I saw that, right? And like now include a stepchild in it, like it's very different because I was never adopted. You know what I mean? So like it really was no say with me, but seeing for my sister, there was a lot of say. It was very complicated. But I always thought that was such a, I don't know, like divorce was always just so interesting to me. Just like the navigation of it all, right? And then obviously it's like how, mom and dad are acting in it, right? Sometimes one parent makes it a little more difficult, I'm assuming. So there's definitely layers to this ish,
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think, I am qualified to come out here and do this because I've lived it, right? So I have this personal experience.
Yeah.
But I've also dedicated my education and my professional career for the last 21 plus years to this. So I don't come at this as, I've been through a divorce and therefore I'm qualified to tell everybody what to do. Like, I have a deep understanding of the legal process, which when you're advising someone in any context, right? And I don't mean just legal advice, which I don't do in my new programs because it's impossible. I think it's important that you have a deep understanding of the backdrop of the legal system, right? Because there are emotional issues that we have to overcome. but there's a lot of logic that needs to be applied to the situation.
Right.
And so things don't happen in a vacuum, right? When you're taking a position, when you're negotiating a settlement with your spouse or the other parent, you have to understand the dynamic that you're operating in so that you know whether what you're asking for is reasonable or not, right? So that's where I marry, for pun intended, the personal experience with the legal experience, with the professional experience, is where we can, at least in Florida, and I'm licensed in Florida, our laws are very clear now. And there has been, over the last decade or so, and more so in the last, I would say, 5 years, where there's this sort of unification happening throughout the country, where we're starting to get an idea of how courts rule, because the laws have gotten more and more clear as the years have progressed, and not necessarily in favor of women. I know, shocking.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, me too. Shocking. But, I don't necessarily think that they're completely unfair either, right? Just because they don't favor one sector of the female population, right? Because those of us who, didn't give up our careers or didn't stop working, it protects us too, right? Because there's the husband out there who wants to ask for alimony, and everybody's shocked when a man does it, but we think it's okay when a woman does it, right? So there's a lot of gender neutrality that I think the law is aiming to protect, and it's still one-sided, and it still disfavors women because we are the ones who give up our careers more likely. We are most people, and I joke about this all the time. I'm like, man, if I had a wife, I would be so much more successful, because it's just, and I don't know if you have who your audience is entirely, but we just take on so much more. It's just our nature. It is what it is,
100%.
My ex-husband was a great dad, but no matter what, like, I always did more, and not because he refused to. I didn't even ask him. Like, before I knew it, I was the social chair, and I was the coordinator, and I was the vacation planner, and I was the pick up the red shirt for the Valentine's Day, while I was running my law firm and, his title company. So it's not, I'm not trying to get into a who's better or who's worse, or, I have my own theories on feminism and what feminism really is, and they're not necessarily aligned with some of the opinions out there, but I think we have to honor that fact, right? That we do tend to take on more, and I don't think most men out there would deny it. It just is what it is.
It's the truth, yeah.
But it all kind of has to be considered within the backdrop of the legal system, and so that's what I try to teach.
100%, and I love that. So, really quick, before we dive into kind of, you mentioned there was like three, I don't know what to call them, three parts of divorce, right? Or the before, during, after, right? I want to dive into that. That was so interesting that you mentioned that. But before we do, what do you think are the most common challenges that mothers face during a divorce or a separation? Like, what are the most common ones that you've seen?
Within which area? You mean like financially or
honestly, anything. What do you typically see? We can start with finances. That's actually a good one.
Yeah. So honestly, it's the finances. That's the biggest issue. The biggest issue primarily comes when there's a huge disparity between the incomes of the parties, or where you have one party that's dependent on the other.
Got it.
Right? So in that case, the first thing I always advise is that you get a handle on your family's finances. And what that means is start paying attention. If you've never paid a bill in your life, you've got to start figuring out what your life costs you. And that's from the mortgage to the light bill to the extracurricular activities that your kids enjoy, to tuition if that's an issue in your household, to how much you spend on yourself. I mean, I wrote that book back in that, when I did it, because women would come to my office back when we used to do things in person, and I had my little questionnaire, and I would get to the bottom, and I'd be like, all right, where do you bank? And I cannot tell you how many women sat across from me and said, I don't know. My check card says Chase. And they didn't know if there was $10 in that account, 10,000 or 10 million.
Wow.
And so for me, financial literacy is the first place to start, because money is power.
Yes.
And money equals independence. And what independence does is that it puts you in a bargaining position, right? When I represent women who have no leverage because they signed terrible prenups, or because they were married for a long time, but they haven't worked, and now, it's a very weakened state when you go in to negotiate, right? So financial literacy for me is the number one. When it comes to parental responsibility is almost always going to be shared. And what that means is that you have to consider the other parent. That seems very unfair to a woman who has always had the reins, who has taken care of every single issue revolving their children.
Right.
Sometimes there are dads who've never been to a doctor's appointment. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, but you have to consult him. And here again, it's not so black and white, right? Like, we have to allow for the situation where one parent didn't participate because they didn't have to, because the other parent picked up the slack while that other parent went to work. And so now they're put into a situation where maybe 50% of the time they're going to be exercising time sharing. And now they're like, well, I want to participate. And the truth is that at least in my jurisdiction, that parent is going to be allowed to participate absent some, what's the term of art? Detriment. Minus there being a detriment, right? And so that's why I start with the premise of educating yourself in what these issues mean, understanding them in a logical way, because your emotions have very little place in the legal system. And so I always believe that it's better to end up with a settlement that you don't love, but you chose, versus a settlement that was imposed upon you that you're also most likely not going to like. And so the best way to do that is to do it through education.
I agree. When it comes to women, right, who you work with, that you've seen, that go to you for advice, or, whatever it might be, regarding separation or divorce, what advice do you kind of give women who, and I know this happens a lot, because what happens is, you give up your career, let's just say you give up your income, whatever it might be, right, to either stay home as a stay-at-home wife or as a stay-at-home mother, right, because you have children, now you want to, devote your time to your kids in that way. What advice would you give them? Because there's a lot of talk, and I'm going to use TikTok for an example, a lot of TikTok talk, right? A lot of talk on the internet regarding this, and one thing that I've read once, and I don't fully agree with it, and that's only because I don't agree with it because I feel like if you do it a certain way, maybe it won't be dangerous, but it says being a stay-at-home mom is the most dangerous job you can have. And for some reason, that really hit me, because I was like, first of all, it shouldn't be like that. But again, right, we're not going off of emotion. This is logic. But number two, okay, let's just say that you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position, because essentially I think you are, and that's just how I feel, and I think it's the truth. But what can we do if a woman or a mother chooses to do that, right? That's her choice to do that, stay home with her kids. How can she protect herself? How can she know, right? Like just be in the damn know of what's going on in that house. You know what I mean?
100%. So I agree that it is the most dangerous position you can put yourself in. And that doesn't mean that it always goes badly, because it doesn't.
Correct.
But it goes badly a lot. I mean, and listen, I also, full disclosure, I only see it when it goes badly, right?
But you've seen enough, right? You've seen enough.
When people honky-dory, they don't end up in my office, right? So
that's real.
I want to, allow for that, bias, so to speak, right? That I only see when things go wrong. I have 2 daughters, and I tell them all the time that my expectation is that they always have their foot in the door in some kind of job. Like, I never want them, I never want them to give up their work altogether, regardless of who they marry. Right?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I talk about that a lot, yeah.
But if that's not what you want, and, the being at home and doing the mommy and me's and the decorating the schools and doing all of that, which is what you give up, right? When you work, for the most part. Not that you give it up entirely. I do some of that stuff, but, I don't do it with the freedom that somebody who doesn't work does it. I would say that you have a very frank and honest discussion with your partner. I think you have to have money, not access to a credit card, but actual money that is deposited into your personal account, and that you don't waste all of that money, that you save some of that money.
Yes.
And that, and not in a sneaky way. I don't think you should have to sneak it or whatever. Yes, that money, if there's no prenup, that money is considered marital money, but it is not the same to get to a divorce or separation with money in the bank that is already on your side of the table, than to come to that table with nothing in your name. So yes, on an equitable distribution table, if you were managed to save $100,000 for purposes of a round number, yes, $50,000 of that money belongs to your partner, or your husband in that case, right? Because if you're not married, then it would just be your money. But assume you're married, right? And you've managed to save $100,000 from your allowance, because at that point, that's what you're getting, right?
Right.
Then it would be offset from the money that your partner has. But you already have it. And there's a value to having money on your side of the table. And so I remember many years ago, I had somebody come to my office, a woman who was married to a very, very wealthy man. I mean, other level, right, of wealth. And at the time, she, of course, he paid for everything, and she had access to an X amount of money, but it was only on a credit card. And I said to her, the first thing I want you to do is go back to him and say, I need this amount in cash. And that does 2 things. One is that it stops him from being able to track every move she makes, because on his credit card, whether she's going to Neiman Marcus, or she's going to get a wax, or she's having lunch with her friends, he knows exactly where she's been every day at every hour.
Wow, that's true. I didn't even think of that.
And number 2, and this was not a small amount of money that she was getting on a monthly basis, in addition to having all of her needs taken care of. I'm like, a third of it, put it away. A third of it, just a third. And I remember years later, when the divorce came, I said, well, did you save any money? And she was like, no, because imagine, do you know how much this designer bag costs? And
of course, right.
And I thought, don't cry victim now.
I mean, yeah, it's true.
No, that's the part that annoys me.
Yeah, I get you. No, I 100% agree with that.
It was
especially because you were advised, right? Like, you told her.
Years.
Yeah.
In 10 years, she had saved none of it.
Ooh, that's not
I
good.
mean, come on, man. You know what I mean? You're not a victim at that point. Yeah. You signed up for it. And he was ruthless in the divorce.
I'm sure.
He had a great prenup that was completely that just, it gave her just enough to make it valid, but just enough to make it valid. Not anywhere near what she would need to even come close to the lifestyle that she had enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, one of the things that's like one of my big pet peeves is like, and why I believe so much in educating people. And I these courses that I've developed and that I'm putting out there and I'm in the process of launching now, are really so that I can help women in particular avoid that situation, right? Where you're like, dude, you got to know the deal you're making, right? 100%. If there's, and I'm going to use a hypothetical that's not so hypothetical. We see it every day in everyday life, right? Like, if you're in a relationship with someone who's 20 years your senior and who is very, very, very successful, you're not going to expect the level of disclosure that two college sweethearts who are building a life together are going to expect to have, right? Because in the college sweetheart or, right after college scenario, you guys are building a life together. Mm-hmm. It's different. It's different than you walk into a life that was built before you got there with a person who you're probably not their first marriage. Maybe you're their second, maybe you're their third. That guy's not going to tell you shit. Like, you're going to live in the lap of luxury. You're going to live an incredible, beautiful life, but you're going to make other concessions. And how many of those concessions you're comfortable with is not for anybody to decide or to judge, right?
Yep.
But I think you always have to go into it knowing that there may be an expiration date. And so then, don't live in fucking La La Land.
I love how real you are, though. Like, we need to hear this. I'm not going to even say, like, the young girlies, like, when I'm 30, but, like, TikTok and all these other apps, I do believe, have presented to us. Oops.
I'm sorry, you cut out on me.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, now I can.
Oh. You can't? Okay. All right, it's going to pick us back
can.
up. I'm sorry. You, like, froze and I froze. I was like, ah. No, but I was saying that I'm grateful for how real you're being, because I think social media influencers, whatever, are presenting to a lot of young girls, truly, what isn't really attainable or what isn't realistic, right? And that part drives me fucking crazy, because I'm like, listen, like, just because maybe this 1 in a million situations, like, I'm just going to say this example, I know somebody who actually lives in Miami. She married an older, wealthier man, right? Now, I feel like their relationship is strong and it's solid and they have a child and she seems very happy. She's also no dummy. She understands, well, she's not the first marriage. She understands all of this. But my whole thing, my issue with this is, like, let's be realistic. Let's not pretend just because you saw a TikTok or you saw something, like, you need to be smart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, I see those TikToks too, and I see those Instagrams, and I see it's like the girl, well, if he doesn't buy me this and if he doesn't do that, then I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's all great and fine and whatever, but look, life isn't black and white. Mm-hmm. Relationships are not black and white. There's a lot of gray. There are statements that I will make that sound very aggressive, but again, I come from the vantage point of I only see it when shit breaks down, right? So, totally. That's what informs and then my best friends are all in these beautiful, happy marriages that I say to my daughters, look, real love is real. It exists, It's out there, but look at their relationships. There's this mutual love. There's mutual respect. They're partners. You can see in the dynamic, the give and the take, and I love that concept of the 80-20 where, like, one day you wake up and you can only give 20, so your partner gives the 80, but the next day maybe he or she can only give 20, and so you give the 80, right? Like, I believe in all of that. After all of these years and after everything I've been through and after all the heartbreak and all the failed relationships, I still believe in love. I still believe it's out there. I still believe it's real. But I also know that coming at any relationship from a position of strength is always the better play. It always that ability to walk away, it's nice. When I wanted to leave my marriage, like, I didn't even think about the money. Like, it was not a factor in my decision. And I think it's probably the reason why my ex-husband and I have been able to maintain a healthy co-parenting. And listen, when I say healthy, like, don't get me wrong, there are days where I pick up the phone and give him a piece of my mind, because I'm upset about something. Like, it's not like,
of course,
again, it's not black and white. Like, it's not like, oh, it's all, rainbows and butterflies and we're so great because, we can spend a holiday together. Yeah, we spend holidays together, or he's always welcomed in my house, and my kids, they if he wants to have them go up to visit him, like, I would never stand in the way of that. And if one of his family members has an important event, I would never stop them from going to see him just because he doesn't help me financially, right? That's the deal I made. So that's the deal I made. I have to live with it. I'm not a victim of that deal. I don't always like it. I wish I had maybe not had such an ego and maybe had been a little bit less, like, I was 100%. 9 years younger, and I've learned, I've learned
totally
a lot in the last 9 years.
Oh, 100%. I can 100% tell, especially too, like, when it comes to something like divorce or something like separation. I think for a lot of moms, I feel like I see my mom go through it, and I feel like what she knows today, she wished she knew then. You know what I mean? Even little things like that, or just kind of like, you don't know what you don't know, and that's just kind of the truth when it comes to parenting. And what about, like, moms who come to you who feel guilt or shame, right? What does that kind of look like, right? What advice do you give to them when it comes down to it during separation? Because I feel like it can't be easy. You mentioned, like, the ego part. I know I have one, like, that would be there. Like, what advice would you give, right, regarding that?
Shame in which context, though? You mean, like, because you want the marriage to end, or?
I would say shame in terms of, like, we all know, especially in certain cultures, divorce, separation, it's not supposed to be a thing, even though I don't believe that. I know my mom actually never told, no, that's a lie. My grandmother never told anybody my mom is widowed or that she's divorced. They just said she's widowed because he died. My stepdad died. Oh. But in the village, like, she never told anybody that she divorced him. No one knows, which I think is insane.
Wow. Well, yeah, because there is that cultural shame in some countries, right? And I think Latin, I don't know if your background is Latin. I'm
half, yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
My family's Cuban.
Cuban? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100% on both sides. I think a lot of, I see that a little bit more in the South American culture, it's very interesting because Miami now, so many of my clients are Latin American, and there's definitely differences. I realize, like, sometimes I'm like, oh wow, like, because in Miami, when you leave Miami, you're like, oh, I'm not that American. But then when compared to, like, the people who are living here now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm super American. Like, it's weird. It's like when you have these two cultures so ingrained in you. So. Look, I think that's what my before courses are kind of geared toward, right? And that's the kind of, because that, nobody wakes up one day and go, today's the day I'm going to get divorced. Nobody does that, right? No. Not even me. By the time I got divorced, I had been practicing like 9 years already or something, almost a decade.
Wow.
And even still, it took me a while. Like I did some research and I had to sit with myself and I had to go to, and I went to therapy and I really tried to give it my all. Right. And so I always do say that. I think you want to know that you gave your marriage everything you got. Because I think it's worth it. Right. This is the parent, or, especially if it's the parent of your children. There is a lot of shame in some cultures, but I do think that it is starting to wane. I feel like certainly from my generation, younger, I don't see that so much anymore. And, it's so, divorce and separation is so widespread that who has a family that hasn't been affected by divorce at this juncture? And when I say divorce, I mean that in the broad sense, like, again, there's people who have children who were never married and then they separate. I'm including them because I think the divorce part is just more of a financial thing and more of a legal complication, but it's the same thing, and for all intents and purposes, to get separated from the parent of your children is always a tough transition. I would say that the best antidote to shame, I think, is acceptance of the situation at your innermost self, and knowing that the decisions that are being made, you're making them with integrity, and that you're making them independently. Sometimes it's a decision that's been thrust upon you, and then it's not about you, right? Because we learn that, when someone mistreats us or someone treats us unfairly, it says more about that person than it says about us,
I agree.
But there's a lot of work that goes into getting there. And there should be no shame in feeling sad, in grieving your marriage, in feeling a little lost. I mean, we've all felt that.
Right.
I can honestly, from my own experience, many, many years later, I'm not going to say today or yesterday or this last month, but like, there are times where I've thought about, my relationship with the father of my children, who happened to be my ex-husband, and thought, God, too bad that didn't work out. We were a beautiful family for a while,
Right.
It would have been nice if it had worked out, but it didn't. And I accept that it didn't. And I gave it my all. And I know that I gave it my all. And I think he gave it his all. And it just didn't work out. And so I wasn't going to stay miserable.
No. That's got to be worse for the kids and for yourselves, right?
Yeah, I'm a very, very, very much a proponent of children are better off with two happy, fulfilled parents than people who stay in it for the kids. Plus, I also think that children, when they're younger and they grow up in a household that's already separated, then it just becomes part of what they are. I think there's, again, the yin and the yang, right? Children who are the product of an intact marriage, but one that is loveless, or, that tension between them, but they're together for the kids, I don't think are fare any better than kids who come from from a family of divorce where the parents get along and they have two homes and it's just what it is. Now, the key there is that the parents get along, because conflict between the parents,
yes,
whether you're married or divorced, is the worst thing
I'm sure
you can expose your kids to.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. And I'm curious too, from like your experience, right, and your story. And I know you said you have two daughters, and obviously you separated from the father of your daughters. So with that being said, what do you feel like, if you can go back in time, right? And there was, I know we don't like to think like this, right? But if there was one thing that you could do, say, right, or just it could be different, is there anything that you would change in your process of divorce?
Yeah, I wouldn't have let him off the hook financially the way I did.
Did mention that. Yes, yes, yes. And so when you have moms or right women who come to you in that kind of situation, do you find yourself kind of fighting more in that regard for them?
I honestly have never come across a single mom who's willing to let their the father off the hook.
What?
No, ever. I don't think ever. I No,
Interesting.
never. I mean, look, I was in a position, or I've been fortunate enough that I have a career and a profession, and that has allowed me to maintain my children at the same standard of living that they had at the time of my separation.
Yeah,
And I get that that's not common.
that's true. That's honest.
You know?
I 100% get that.
But you ask me, and that's the honest truth. Like I think I overdid it. You know, I overdid it, and
Totally.
you know, it's too late now.
What was no, I mean, listen, I get you, girl. What was, do you think, one of the most difficult parts of like building your practice, right? Or like obviously like working and then raising two girls, right? So like obviously like I call that like a boss babe mom, because you've got your business, you're thriving in here, but then you were raising two girls at the same time by yourself. What do you think was the biggest challenge for you? Because it's not uncommon, right, for moms to have businesses or work and raise kids.
Yeah. Well, I have had help because I mean it's paid help.
I love outsourcing. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love my nanny. I get it.
Yeah, my kids. You know, my kids always had a nanny and then a homework tutor because somebody was going to end up at the bottom of the pool if I was going to have to teach math to my third grader. You know, I mean, so I always had some kind of help that I've always paid for. You know, and then the occasional. The mom that helps me, you know, there's always like a non-working mom that helps, you know, and you know, my kids go to great schools and I've developed good relationships. And look, my sister-in-law lives 3 blocks from me. She helps me out when I've needed it. I have a community,
A village, a community. I'm a big advocate for that. I love it.
I have a community that I'm not super good at relying on, you know, asking for help, not my forte.
I hear that.
But it's one of the things I've learned over these last 9 years is that it doesn't make me weak because I have to ask for help.
Nope.
I can't be in 2 places at once. And listen, I struggle a lot with the occasional bouts of I'm failing at everything. I'm not doing anything right. You know, I'm doing it all, but I'm not doing any of it well. Like I have that chatter in my head from time to time, you know?
Yeah. We all get it. I get you.
And I like to be honest about that because I think people sometimes see me from the outside and think that I maybe don't think that. I think that all the time, you know? And
100%.
what consoles me is that I know that I'm doing the best I can. You know, I show up for my clients the best way I can. I show up for my kids the best way I can. Something's got to give sometimes, you know, and things give when they have to give. And I try not to beat myself up for it. I will admit that I go last. I still am last on the totem pole. You know, if somebody's dental appointment is getting canceled, it's mine. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, right? But I'm a mom, and that's what I signed up for. Like I don't feel like, oh, poor me. I also go to the beach. You know, I go to the beach almost every Sunday. That's my thing. Like I need that. I need a couple of hours on the sand with the ocean and the sun. And I live in Miami, so I'm lucky that I can do that. And so I try not to make plans for anything at all those hours on Sunday mornings because they're mine. You know,
As you should.
I try to balance things out like that. You know, and time will tell how well I'm doing. You know. Time will tell how happy my kids are, you know, or how much they love their lives when they grow up. You know, I feel very much like I'm a little team with my girls.
I love that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so sweet.
But I don't know. I don't really know. I think it's one day at a time. It's kind of my creed, right? Like, do the next right thing every day. Get up and just do whatever the next right thing is. And sometimes that right thing is to do nothing.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I've accepted that. Oh boy, have I. No, I love that. I mean, listen, it's hard to put ourselves first, but you can sprinkle it in wherever you can because you still matter. You're still important. That's why I created this community, why I created this podcast. It was very important for me to make sure that I'm honing in on that, to make sure moms know, like, you are important too, right? I get it. The mom stuff, it always comes first. That's for life. But I like when moms take care of themselves, or even do like a beach day on Sundays, or whatever you can do. I'm like trying to encourage that. So you mentioned your courses earlier, and I want to dive into those before we wrap up. When are they coming out, and who are they helping? Because I know you said you wanted to help moms in different phases.
So we've got 2 of them out already: the before divorce and the after divorce.
Okay.
The during divorce, I've been toying with the idea of making it a live so that people can ask me their questions and I can answer them there, because I think a lot of people might enjoy that, where I feel like the before and the after, they're more emotion driven, and they're really for men and women. I've intentionally tried to make them as gender neutral as possible.
Okay.
Because men have the same issues as women, and I represent a lot of husbands and a lot of fathers.
I love that.
So I'm very familiar with their process. And honestly, maybe they use different words, but it's all the same, because we're all part of the human race, right? We're all human. We all have a heart. We all have minds. We all process things differently. Even between women, right? You and I probably don't process trauma the same way, as Jane from Wisconsin. Like, we all come from it differently, and men are no different. So my courses are intended to help men and women. I know that we're more inclined to subscribe to these things. I know I am. Like, I love all of this stuff, so
Same.
That's why I did it. The before is to kind of not push you in any direction. It's not to say you're ready for divorce. It's more of a helping you process the financial questions, the emotional questions, the should I stay, should I go, what's really a divisive issue, and what is just maybe a funk,
Yeah,
because that happens too. Like, I remember I represented a woman in her prenuptial agreement, and like a year and a half later, she calls me, and she had just had a baby. The baby was like 3 months old, and she's like, I need you to represent me in the divorce. I can't stand him. Da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, listen, so-and-so, your baby's like 3 months old. Didn't anybody tell you that you were probably going to hate him? That, like, I think it's like a natural thing where we just fucking hate them for the first few months, like, you just want your baby to yourself,
Yeah, oh yeah,
yes. I was like, because the things she was telling me, I was like, look, do me a favor. I'm always going to be here, and if we hang up and you call me back tomorrow, I'll represent you. But do me a favor, give it a little bit, right? Like, try to understand that this is stressful for him too. I kind of just gave her some like mom advice, not lawyer advice.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't think, as much as I make my living with divorce, like, I don't want to, there's plenty of business out there. Like, I don't need to push people into getting a divorce.
That was sweet of you. That was very sweet.
She I mean, I never, I don't think they ever got divorced, like,
there you go. Yeah, maybe call the doctor first before, you know what I mean? Like, go in, like, and maybe chat. Like, that's what I did. I'm like, hey, doc, like, I'm not feeling the greatest. So, you know what? I made that phone call to my gyno, and he sat with me. I love my gynecologist. And we talked and yapped, and he gave me what I needed.
Yeah, sometimes we just need to process and kind of see something from a different perspective. And so that's kind of what the before, the resources and the course is all about. And then the after is the same. The after is my favorite, because I love the life I've built. And it hasn't been easy, and it's, not been linear. But if you build a life with intention, divorce doesn't have to be a tragedy. It doesn't have to end your life. On the contrary, you get like a second crack at the apple, you know?
Totally.
Bite at the apple. I'm terrible with adages. And so I'm building a program around that. And then we have what I call the power hours, which are on Wednesdays, and people can just sign in, and I answer the first, as many questions as I can of the people who submit their questions, and, I go through them all. And I think, like, as the process grows, I'll probably do one for just the after people and then do one for the before. Like, I'm still working all of that out. Mm-hmm. But so before and after are already live, and people can sign up for the parenting playbook, which is where we talk about co-parenting issues and how to address them and how to create boundaries. And I've got a great expert that I'll be interviewing for that course to give, some with a psychology background to give us some ideas. The word narcissist is such a common word now, and so I want to address that because so many people feel like they're in narcissistic relationships, and so I want to add value and bring in a licensed psychologist to come and talk with me about those issues. So those are courses that can be signed up for, and they'll be released soon.
Amazing. Oh, excited for that. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you. My last and final question before I get your social media, if people want to reach out to you and, of course, get your courses. If you were to give one piece of advice to any mother facing a big life transition, such as divorce, separation, whatever it might be, what would that advice be for you? Just one tiny advice.
My advice is always to pull back, not make any rash decision.
Ooh.
Sit with yourself first. Come to your truth first.
I love that.
It's the only truth that matters. And then you start a negotiation, and then you make a decision. But you can't just shoot from the hip on these issues. You have to find your center. And that looks like a variety of ways, right? People do it in a whole variety of ways, and we can probably talk another 45 minutes on that. But yeah, so I would say that is to first sit down with yourself, because everybody has an opinion in divorce, and everybody has a story, and mine went this way, and so got this result, and you need one source of truth. Maybe that's what I should say to make it more succinct. You need one source of truth for your decisions, and I think it should start with you.
Oh, I think that's great advice. I think a lot of people needed to hear that. So, Aliette, thank you so much for being here with us today. Where can we follow you on social, or where can we head over for your courses as well?
So the courses are under my website, my personal brand website, which is AlietteHCarolan.com. My social, my Instagram is the same, Aliette H. Carolan. And then we didn't talk about my product, which is thequickdivorce.com, which is if you need help with the paperwork, then you can go through thequickdivorce.com, and it helps you whether you're married or not. You just answer some questions, and we take you through the whole process.
Oh, that's incredible. Perfect. Aliette, thank you for being here with us today. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.